For almost 15 years, Elijah Ward had lived alone on the far edge of the Arizona plains, the kind of place where the world felt frozen in time. His days were predictable and quiet. Dawn chores, repairing fences, feeding horses, patching water lines, and ending the day on the porch as the sun melted into the earth like gold. Silence had become his companion, his shield, and his prison. After losing his family in a tragic accident years ago, the loneliness felt safer than the world ever could. Townsfolk called him a ghost, a man who refused company, refused conversation, refused life itself. Elijah didn't mind. Ghosts didn't have to smile. Ghosts didn't have to feel. That was the point. But on a blistering afternoon, when the heat rose from the sand like smoke, the quiet world he guarded so fiercely cracked open. Elijah was fixing a fence post when he heard something unusual. Footsteps, heavy, slow, controlled, 2 sets. No truck engine, no horse, just the rhythmic thud of giants walking across the earth. He straightened, squinting into the haze. That was when he saw them, 2 towering women, emerging from the brightness, like warriors carved from the land itself. They were tall, unbelievably tall, their braided hair decorated with beads and feathers, their fringed skirts moving gently in the hot wind, their presence powerful enough to make the ranch seem small. They approached without fear, without hesitation, with a confidence Elijah had never witnessed before. The taller one spoke, her voice deep and steady. "Are you the man who lives alone here?" Elijah nodded. "I am. My sister and I come asking for water. Our village well has gone dry." Elijah had never expected strangers, let alone 2 giant Apache sisters, to appear at his ranch asking for help, but he wasn't heartless. "You came to the right place," he said. He led them to the pump behind the barn. As the water filled the metal drums, he caught himself staring. They weren't just tall, they were strong enough to lift full water barrels, like empty buckets. Their names were Nayeli and Tala. There was power in Nayeli's stance, but warmth in her voice. Tala's eyes held a softness that contrasted with her towering height. When they finished filling the last container, Nayeli said, "You helped us today. We do not forget kindness." "It's just water," Elijah insisted. "To you, maybe," Tala replied. "To us, it is life." Before leaving, Nayeli added, "If the drought continues, we may return." Elijah surprised himself when he answered, "You're welcome any time." They walked away as the sun dipped lower, their giant silhouettes stretching across the land. For the first time in years, Elijah noticed the silence. Felt different, less like an empty void and more like a pause before something new. Days passed. Elijah tried to return to his normal routine, but something inside him had changed. He found himself glancing at the desert path far more often than he wanted to admit. The memory of the sister's presence lingered like a warm ember in his chest. On the 7th morning, when the sky was still painted with dawn colors, he heard those familiar footsteps again. The 2 sisters appeared, carrying the empty barrels with ease. The drought had worsened, they said. The village needed more water. Elijah didn't hesitate. As they worked, the silence between them felt natural. Nayeli inspected the ranch with curiosity, while Tala asked gentle questions about Elijah's solitary life. Inside his cabin, Elijah invited them to share a simple meal. It was awkward, but comforting. And when Nayeli observed, "You live with many memories here, some heavy," Elijah felt seen in a way he hadn't in years. Before leaving, Tala whispered, "We may bring others next time. Our elders wish to thank you." When they walked away again, Elijah felt something in him shift. A door inside him had quietly opened. Several days later, the sound of footsteps returned, but not just 2. Nearly a dozen figures approached behind the sisters. Elders, children, villagers, all carrying baskets and blankets. They had come to honor Elijah Ward. The eldest man spoke. "You shared your water when the land turned its back on us. For that, you are now a friend of our people." Elijah was overwhelmed. For years, he had lived in silence. Now an entire village stood at his gate offering gratitude. The sisters stayed behind after the ceremony. Nayeli stood tall, her shadow long across the earth. "Sometimes the world brings people into your life for a reason," she said. Elijah asked softly, "And what reason would that be?" Tala stepped closer, her voice warm and quiet. "To remind you that you are still alive, Elijah Ward, that the world has not forgotten your name." Nayeli added, "And maybe you no longer have to live alone." As the giant sisters walked away with their people, Elijah stood at his gate watching the desert path. For years he had welcomed silence, but now he welcomed something else. Hope. Connection, life returning. And from that day on, Elijah waited, no longer afraid of tomorrow but eager for it. Because somewhere beyond the horizon, the footsteps of two giant Apache sisters would return again, carrying with them the promise of a life no longer lived alone. If you enjoyed this powerful story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotional, thrilling, and cinematic tales brought to life just for you. Your support helps us create more stories every week.